Hello everyone, Ceri the Crafter here, that's Ceri the Crafter, and I'm here with another postcard make. Now if you don't know what I'm talking about, I'm running a challenge called #Gely Postcard Play in this month, which is July 2024. Basically, in a nutshell, it's make a 6x4 postcard every day of the month for the whole month of July, and there must be an element on there of something that's made with or from or produced by a gel plate. All the stuff is in the description box below. The launch video is there while I fully explain it, and there are 3 prep videos there, plus all of the supporting channels who helped me launch this channel. Who helped me launch this challenge, should I say. If you go into any search area now, say on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook, and you were to type this in, anyone who's participating, and there's lots of people participating, which I'm really happy about, all of their videos and posts and images will all come up. That's the way to do it. So today's postcard, right, I'm working with this postcard back. Now, this one wasn't produced in the prep series purely because I wasn't planning on using this color or this shape or this style. Shape, what am I talking about? It's the shape we're doing 4x6. This style, but I've had a couple of requests to show how to work with napkins, and I need that because this is a napkin I'm working with. So that's why you haven't seen that one somewhere else. So let's go back. Let's pretend we're absolutely beginners here. These are two napkins, and this is how I'm going to use them. So as you can see, this one folds out to a really nice design. I'm just going to cut this just so I've got a smaller piece to work with on screen. I'm not going to be using that flower probably, so I can just cut down there. And then it'll just be easier for me to work with, so I'm not dealing with all of the surplus. Normally what I would do is I would take the layers off and put the layers into a bag for another time. Okay, so a napkin is made up of 2 or 3 layers of paper. I tend to wet my finger. Now you can either get a wet cloth and just get your fingers slightly damp on a wet cloth, and you can pinch it, and as you pinch, the layers will stick to your fingers depending on how moist your fingers are. So that's one back layer. Come on, come apart. The final layer is usually the one that's a bit trickier. There you go. You will know when you've got to the final layer because it looks this thin. So this is what we're going to use on that postcard, but I'm going to do something else before we get to that. You will also notice that the first layer is completely clean. The layer closest to the print sometimes has a ghost of whatever's on the napkin. There is another technique which I've seen used a lot, which I like using occasionally, depends on how quick I want to work, and we'll do that with a whole one here. So here is a whole napkin of bees. If you take a bit of sticky tape, scotch tape, masking tape, anything like that should work, and if you just get it unstuck from your finger, if you press it onto the back and tear, it will pull off the layer, and then if you do that one more time, it'll pull off the other layer, and then what you do is you separate it out. Now I'm just going to tear that bit off, because if I don't, it's going to get stuck to my hands. You can save these bits and do what I'm about to do with them, or you can use them for other things, or you could just use them to clean up stuff if you wish. Now we're going to need a bee. Well, maybe I want 2 bees. So I'm going to take out 2 of the bees here. I'm just using a water brush just to go around the napkin. Now, so far I have only used gift wrap tissue, and I've warned you time and time again with gift wrap tissue how sensitive it is to water and how it will fall apart and break apart and stuff like that. Napkin is even worse. So let's just take that one out there. I'm probably going to make them less squared when I get to use them, but as I got the napkin, I can work with it there. Right, let's take that out of the way. This can go back into my drawer of napkins. So I've got my 2 bees here. I'm going to work on something else before we start the thing itself. Now, there is another thing I do with napkins, and I'm going to pull out a gel plate. Now, you're all going to go, oh, Ceri, your gel plate's dirty. Yes, it is, because I normally clean my gel plate, but there's been a beginner in the comments who's a bit worried. They've done gel plating for the first time. They've got paint on their gel plate and they can't get it off. So what I'm going to do is I've left some on from a previous make. I'm going to use black today because that's what I need for the next piece I'm going to work on. And then I'm going to leave that on, and hopefully by the end of this video, it will be dry enough to show that lovely lady how to remove it. She can't remove it. So bear with me and be patient with me on that one. It's easier to show than explain. So what I'm going to do is I've got my clean bit of tissue here, and I've got the scarab beetle from PM Artist Studio. Can I get 2 of them on there? I can, good. And what I want to do is I want to stamp with this onto napkin back. Now you've seen me do it previously onto wet strength tissue. I've also done it onto, I need slightly more if I'm going to make this plate ugly. I've done it onto wet strength tissue paper. I've done it onto gift wrap tissue paper. Each have a different result, so in their usage. So I'm going to do this with gift wrap tissue purely because I've got an Egyptian themed postcard coming up, and it will give me a chance to share with you the difference the napkin tissue reacts to gift wrap tissue. Now, what I would say, let's just get this on here before I do talk anymore, is when you're using a foam stamp, I don't mind it at an angle, with acrylic paint, make sure as soon as it's finished using, take a damp cloth and actually sit it on the damp cloth so that the paint doesn't have a chance to dry on the cloth. So I'm just sitting that there, and the first break that I take, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come in and wash that stamp. So I don't know why my brain isn't functioning today. Right, so this will go and sit onto one side, and you'll see I might do the Egyptian one tomorrow, to be honest with you, because then it'll be continuity for you. Right, I need to find somewhere to put this so it's not going to get dirty. So there you go. That's as dirty as this plate can get. I'm going to put it on my windowsill so it dries off. Now I've still got stuff on my brayer. Let's just pull in. I've got one of these textbooks. It's just a book. And I'm cleaning off my brayer in here because I saw Darcy Sanders do this the other day. And what Darcy did was, once she was using pages, she'd make onto these pages, and then they would become collage fodder. I hate that word, fodder. She called them collage crumbs. There you go. There you go. So they can be torn apart and used for collage. So you will see me using this in the future. Probably next month, the month of August, when I'm no longer doing this challenge, you'll see the results of that, and you'll see me doing mark making on it. So, right, where am I up to now? Postcard. Right, so that's there. Now, I've got this postcard, and I want to put these sunflowers on. I want to put it on quite high up, actually. Or do I want the whole of that on? Because it's napkin, I can lift it up and see through it, which is rather nice. And I think once I've done that, I'm just going to take my water pen and take away the excess. Well, my water pen, does it need water? No, it doesn't need water. It just needs a little squeeze. I keep calling this a water pen. I'm sorry, guys. It's a water brush. I don't know where I keep getting water pen from. Right, just roughly taking the edges off here. I intend sticking the entire napkin over the entire postcard because it's got a whole pattern. If I was actually just doing sections of it, I could easily take out sections and then it wouldn't bother me. I could take that out if I wanted to, but I don't think I like this postcard. So let's get rid of that. So I've done this technique before, and I've done it with a glue stick, which is probably in one of my other videos. I'm going to use matte gel medium this time, just because someone will ask me, can you use matte gel medium? I'm also using a bit of, this is cling film or plastic wrap. You can use a plastic sandwich bag. Split the plastic sandwich bag open, and then once you've used it, give it a little wash with your hand, and then, good grief, I can't rip plastic today. And then you could recycle that bag by using it time and time again. That was someone else's suggestion. It's a really good suggestion, but until I run out of cling film or plastic wrap, I think I'm going to stick with what I'm doing, but it is a very, very good idea. Right, I like this detail here, and I'm hoping some of that's going to show through. Although if it doesn't overly bother me because I've got stamped tissue with that design on it. I can always layer it up over the top. So I'm coming in with a reasonable amount of matte medium. The matte gel medium I'm using is this. You could do this with other glues. I mean, this is, as you've heard me say, I do very often do this with a glue stick when I'm working on journal stuff. But for this instance, I'm going to use this because this is kind of what I've been using all the way along. I'll just make sure it's got reasonably even. I want to make sure all of the edges are done, because if anything lifts up, that's where it's going to lift up. Right, I think we're done. Now, for me, it's a case of get it down and get it down quick. I just gently rub my finger over it just to make sure it's secure. Then I put plastic on top of it. Then I'll take, I'm going to use the bit of salvage off the back, and I'm just going to gently stroke over the top. Now, I'm not pressing too hard, but what this will do, it will give you a chance of rubbing the air bubbles out, working out any creases that you wouldn't normally be able to do with a brush, because the brush could tear the napkin. Also, if there's a pattern, like as you can see on this napkin, let's see if I can open this up for you. There's a slight pattern along the edge. If you don't want that, this is another way to gently smooth, and you will find that you'll get rid of that pattern as well. Now, there is no matte gel medium on the top side of this currently. And that's important, because if it's on the top side, then it's going to stick to the plastic, and then the plastic will actually lift and tear. So I gently peel this away. Now, I don't know whether you can see it, but there is a layer of glue on there. You wouldn't reuse this one, because if you use it on the next napkin, it would probably reactivate that glue. So unfortunately, this goes into my recycling bin. I'm going to lift this off here. Off you come. Try not to tear the napkin. It's stuck down. Right, I just want to give that a bit of a clean up before I do the next stage. Sorry, you're watching me having a good old clean. That's okay. So I'm going to leave the napkin on here to dry. I'm not going to worry about trying to cut the edges off straight away, but I am going to give it a coating of matte medium now. So I'm going to work from the center. I'm going to gently work my way out. Now, I've done this with gift wrap tissue with you, and I've said be careful. Now, I'm using a soft brush. Do not use a stiff brush. A stiff brush will end up tearing the surface. Also, if you've got something you can move around, like maybe a piece of card, or as I've got this like silicone baking sheet here, just because you can move it around then without touching it and without disturbing it. It's amazing how sticky fingers can tear stuff so easily. And this won't take long to dry at all. You can dry this with a hairdryer, which is probably what I'm going to do in a moment or two. Right, that's that on there. Now I do have another bit of tissue to go on here, and now would be the perfect time to do it. I've got the strip of numbers. These are acrylic paint. You saw me stamp them. The most important part for me is that number there, which is number 4. Number 4 is actually the number of this postcard, and I wanted to put this here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in there with my water brush. I'm just going to cut that section off, and then just because of the moisture, it will pull away. This bit goes back into my scrap box of tissue. It can be used again. So now that this, I know it's going here, I know there's already a layer of matte gel medium on there, but I'm just going to refresh it. And am I shot, I am. And gently, gently. I know I sound paranoid, guys, but it's so easy to tear tissue. Lay that down on the side of there. I'm going to gently work my way out. I can't put plastic on top of this because there's matte gel medium on that. If I put plastic on to matte gel medium, the plastic will dry and stick and tear. So lift that up so it's not sticking everywhere else. Right, we also had our little bees, wherever the heck they are gone. Now, I'm going to just hold the bit between my finger and my thumb that I want to preserve and tear my way around this. So this is another way of doing it if you didn't have a water pen or you didn't have just a plain paintbrush with water. What I would do is get a jar of water, a fine paintbrush, dip it in, give it a bit of a shake, the excess off, and then basically you don't need to buy a water brush. I only use one because I've got one. I sometimes use them to paint inks. That's one of my little bees. I've got bees in the garden at the moment. I've got bumblebees. All of our poppies are out in my garden and my hydrangeas, and the bees are going nuts for them. And also the lavender's going to come out probably within the next month, and the bees absolutely love the lavender. Is that folded over? That looks like it's folded over. It is folded over, right. So again, I'm going to come in, I'm going to decide where I want the bees. I think I'd want like one up here. I tend to handle stuff on my paintbrush because then it's not sticking to my finger. I'm going to use the other one down here. Yes, I think by there will be a good idea. I'm toying with putting it in this corner, but that's too balanced. Actually, I think about there would be a good place for it. Just sit you down, Mr. B. Right, as that dries, it's going to become more transparent. So I'm now going to pause the video for two minutes or 2 seconds, whatever. Going to hit this with a hairdryer, and I also really want to get this washed because I don't want it drying. I love the stamp, and I don't want any of the paint building up in that little area there. So back in 2 seconds, guys. So here we are, all nice and dry. I'll tell you, it took a few minutes. In fact, it's probably not dry all the way through, but it's dry enough for me to use. Now, I am going to back this, so I'm not worried about that. I thought before I trim it, let's show you how I trim it. Now, I usually just get a big pair of scissors, if I can pick this up, and it's easy enough to run a scissors along the edge of the 6x4 postcard. Alternatively, you could get yourself a cutting mat and an X-Acto knife or a scalpel with a metal ruler and do exactly the same thing, which if it was a bigger piece, I probably would be doing. But just for this video, I think it's easy enough to just to cut it. And also having the edge of the postcard just gives you enough to rest the scissors up against. There you go. Right, that's changed the personality of that. Now, there are a couple of other things I want to do. First of all, I'll put that on before I stab myself. I want to deal with the number 4, which is something I've got planned. And also I want to put something white on here. And I'm going to put some white bubble wrap. And I know you're all like, oh, bubble wrap. Yeah, it's me. I use bubble wrap, okay. So I'm just going to put some white acrylic paint down. I'm just using a store card because I need a little bit of it. I don't need a gel plate to do this. And then I'm going to get some bubble wrap. As you can see, I've used this one before. I just want to come in just to the odd area, just to touch things in. Not trying to cover anything up, just trying to give it another dimension. Another look, should we say. I think I'd like it a little further up there as well. I think possibly the reason I'm thinking of this is I want to break up this large expanse of brown there. There you go. So just enough. I didn't go over the B, didn't go over the words, just those little areas. Well, I've got this on. Only a little tiny bit of red paint. Don't need a lot. Just a little bit of a squish. And then I'm going to come in, and I've got a tube here. It was an innard from, I think this was actually a cash register roll I found on the floor in the supermarket. So I'm going to get myself a circle of red. I'm going to have to do this from above. I'm just going to circle the number 4, just so it dictates that that's what it is. I'm tempted to put the red other places. I'm not going to. I also had a look around, and I've got one of these Tim Holtz, what's it called, clipping sticker book. And I love this Learning to Fly, because it could be the bees that are learning to fly. So I thought, I'm going to use those. If I can open the page up, right. Peel it off there. I am going to ink around the edges, purely because it doesn't look as stark then. It may not seem a lot, but I just like to have a little edge on it, just to take it into the background a little bit. Now, these are really quite sticky. However, do I trust anything? Like heck I do. So I'm going to put a little bit of art glitter glue on the back of here, just in case at some point it decides it wants to lift. And I fancy it right across. Not across there. Right across there. Now, is that straight-ish? That'll do. So I think that postcard is done. So here I'm back again, nice and dry. Now, one last thing I want to do is I want to go around this with some Distress ink. I haven't done it with every one of mine, but as you can see, it just pulls that brown out of the centers and actually makes this have a more vintage type, grungy type look, which I think this postcard requires. Now, as you can see, my postcard is curling. Anytime you're using wet mediums onto a paper-based or card-based surface, because the fibers swell and shrink with moisture, there's a little bit there that needs snipping, it will curl. What I'm going to do is, once this video is done, and this is perfectly dry, I'm going to stick a back on it. I'll just put a plain piece of backing card on there, and then I'll put it under a heavy book, and it will flatten everything out. So I'm quite happy with that. That's cool. So that's the napkin technique. So for those of you who were, the lady who was asking about my gel plate is now covered in paint and I can't get it off. She's tried washing it, she's tried cleaning it and scrubbing it, well, not scrubbing it, but giving it a good old rub, and she's nervous she's going to damage her plate. Now, this is acrylic paint onto a 5x7 gel press plate. What I would suggest you get is get yourself some packing tape, the stuff you do parcels with. Don't be tempted to get things like masking tape or other sorts of tape. We who use gel plates find this is the most useful. Sorry about the scrunchy noises. So if you put this on, give it a good rub in, when you pick it up, it takes all of that paint off. Now, a couple of years ago, when I didn't have many gel plates, I used to search eBay in case someone was selling off. Sorry about that noise. I can't help it. That's tape. Selling off any old gel plates, and I did find some of my gel plates there. There was a case that I bought a set of mini gel plates, like the round, the square, and the triangle, was it? Or no, it was a round. No, it was an oval and a really small rectangle, and I got them just for a couple of quid, but they were so caked in paint. I was like, there's no way I'm going to rectify this. I did. Doing this technique, it took a lot of tape and a lot of patience, but it did mean that I got every single bit of paint off that, and it's now a fully usable gel plate again. All I did was I rubbed a little bit of baby oil into the surface after I cleaned it, let it sit for a while to soak in, and then I just wiped off the excess, and that conditioned the plates. Let's just take this bit out of here. turn the end over, because that's one that drives me nuts if people don't turn the end over on tapes. So this, some people do save this and use it. I'm not. For me, this is trash. It's not interesting. It's not something I want hanging around. So that's how I clean my gel plate. I mean, my gel plate is stained. It's not dirty. It's stained because my gel plates are old, guys. I mean, I've got a brand new one of these because I've got 2 old ones and a brand new one I treated myself to at Christmas. But they work perfectly well, whether they're stained with ink or paint or whatever you're using. It's still working perfectly well. So I think we need to say goodbye. So I'm Ceri the Crafter. That's Ceri the Crafter. Until the next time. Goodbye now.